Hello everybody and welcome to the Contraption Maker School. This video is going to go over how to use the Scenery tool. The Scenery tool lets you easily create custom backgrounds for your contraptions. So say I just made this really cool contraption right here and I want to share it with everybody, but it's just a little boring to share it on the standard blue background. I want to give it a background and a setting and make it a little more fun to watch. So to do that, I'm going to use the Scenery tool. The Scenery tool is kind of broken up into two parts. You have your Scenery bin and your Layers panel. I'm just going to cover up my part bin here because that's not really important right now. So I'm going to get my Scenery bin and my Layer panel. Okay, so this is my Scenery bin up here. This has all of my scenery that I use to make my backgrounds. And down here is my Layers panel. This lets me organize my scenery by saying what's on top and what's behind. So if I take a look at this, right now I'm on my part layer. This is where I actually just place all of my parts that I get out of the part bin. In addition to the part layer, I have my scenery layers. Anything on top of your part layer like this is going to show up in front of your parts, and anything down here is going to show up behind your parts. Instead of talking about it, I can just show you some examples. So since I'm on Scenery 2, which is under my part layer, any scenery that I bring out into the scene is going to show up behind my parts. But instead, if I go to Scenery 1, which is on top of my part layer, and bring something out, it's going to show up in front of my parts and cover things up. The scenery layers are actually easily movable. If I just click and drag, then I can drag my scenery layer below my part layer, or I can drag a different scenery layer and put it on top of my part layer. So they can be moved around depending on what you want to do with them. Then you got some more things on this scenery window here. This eyeball will turn on or off the scenery layer, the visibility of it. And this lock will lock a layer so you don't accidentally click it or edit it or delete it or something like that. This bar right here under the scenery will control the transparency for an entire layer. So if I turn it all the way back here, I can't see the layer. Put it here, it makes the layer kind of see-through. I put it up all the way to the right. My layer is not transparent at all. The plus lets me add a new scenery layer in case I want to just stay a little more organized, and the trash will delete a scenery layer. Alright, so that's how you organize your scenery when you're playing with it. Now let's see how to actually use it. Okay, so I'll go to my Scenery 1 layer with this tree here, and if I click, I've got a whole bunch of options. Okay, I got this handle here, which if I click and drag, I can rotate any of my scenery. These arrows right here will just flip it back and forth. This slider right here will adjust the opacity of just one object instead of doing my entire layer with this little slider over here. And this right here is the scenery size handle. So if I click and drag this, I can size my scenery. If you hold shift while you're dragging, it will size it proportionally so you don't have to worry about stretching it at any sort of weird angles. This button right here brings up the animation tool for scenery, but we'll go over that in a different video. And then you've got these buttons right here, which will send scenery backward and forward within its own layer. So let me bring another piece of scenery out here as an example. Okay, so this tree right here is in front of its own layer, but if I click this button right here, it will send it back behind this tree. And then if I click it again, it'll bring it back forward. So this gives me organization within a layer. And then the final button here is the trash can, which will throw away a piece of scenery. And that's pretty much it for controlling scenery. It may seem a little confusing at first, but it's actually pretty easy to use. I just want to go over a couple more special scenery parts. If you go up here to the top, you've got this T here is the text tool, which will let you bring out and let you actually type some text onto the screen. If I click this little wrench here, I can put in what I want. Okay, and then I can choose from a couple different fonts, a few different colors, and I can size my scenery and move it around just like I can any other parts. And then the next special parts are these 3 shapes right here, these sort of rainbow colored shapes. These are patterned shapes, so if I pull out this square here and I click this wrench, it brings up a bunch of different patterns and colors that I can pick between. So I can pick some solid colors, or I can pick some repeating patterns, which lets me make some pretty cool little custom scenery pieces. So now that you know how to use it, you can go ahead and make a cool background for this contraption. So there's my completed contraption with some scenery to make it look a little prettier. One thing to note when you're making scenery is your puzzle boundaries, this black little line that goes around your contraption. When you publish a contraption to the workshop, this is where it's going to cut everything off and it's going to be black past that. So when you're building your scenery, you know, I may have some ugly ends out here, but it doesn't really matter because everything past this little line right here is actually going to get cut off. If you go into your puzzle options and go to resize puzzle, you can change your puzzle boundaries to the bounds that you want according to your scenery and your puzzle or your contraption. So there you have it. That's how to use the scenery tool. Once you've had some practice with this, you're probably ready to work on some scenery animation to make your backgrounds even more interesting and fun to watch.